Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, cognitive engineer and ADHD coach Jeff Copper. I've been doing a series of lives recently talking about a new field of engineering that I've engineered called cognitive ergonomics from the inside out, which also doubles as a new ADHD intervention. It actually represents a paradigm shift in the way we look at trying to help those with ADHD. Paradigm shift being it's a completely different way of approach. It changes our conceptual understanding of it. When I first started doing lives, I did one talking about what's required to have a field of engineering so that there was some basis to what I'm saying. It wasn't just making a proclamation, but I was trying to explain the foundation of it. And since that time, I've been trying to talk about what the new model bears, what we see, what we're learning, how it's different from conventional wisdom. And today, I want to talk really about context and language. We have a tendency to gravitate to language that's emotional or simplistic. And we'll get to a point in time where we'll begin to repeat words over and over and over. And at some point in time, they lose their meaning. And so one of the things that I really wanted to highlight was, and actually I did a recent interview on this particular topic, and that's strategy. We're going to cover a couple others here, but strategy. I got ADHD. I need a strategy, or I need tools. I need in strategy. And really, a strategy is nothing more than a plan. All right. And if you'll notice, if you have ADHD, you're not always doing what the plans say to do, and you're not really following the strategy. But we've been conditioned to be looking for those types of things. And at the end of the day, I would submit to you that plans and strategies don't work when there's a problem. When there's a problem, right? You're going along and then there's a problem. If you're not able to resolve the problem, that you're not able to execute the plan. And cognitive ergonomics from the inside out is based off of Dr. Barkley's model or definitions of executive functions, and they are a collection of mind tools that you use to solve problems. So when you think about it, sitting down doesn't require executive functions. Walking doesn't require executive function. Solving a dilemma like maybe something broke on the dishwasher or something like that. Well, now you got to fix it. That's actually solving a problem. So very specifically, ADHD is an impairment of executive functions. So solving problems when you do it inside your head is more difficult. You don't have the ability as other neurotypicals do. You're still intelligent, but you have to externalize it. So one of the things that we've alluded to in some of our other videos, I think the third one, about the middle of October specifically, we talked about problem solving. We put a little graph up and we talked about how you use thoughts when you think, but you think in different ways, daydreaming, emoting, judging, learning. But really what we're specifically talking about is problem solving. I've said on other videos that you'll probably find if you really look at your procrastination list that about 80% of what you're putting off is rooted at some level of ambiguity, which makes some sense. If you don't really know what to do, go do something that you can get done. So if we begin to think our way through this, we're conditioned to look for strategies, but strategies are really not what we should be looking at. We should be looking at problem solving. And the thing about people with ADHD, because that's impaired, we should be trying to get some type of accommodation, some type of a support. If you go out into the world and you take a look at typical ADHD accommodations, school-based extra time, sitting in front of class, written instructions, quiet time. If you'll notice, all of those accommodations are more geared towards focus. In other words, you need to focus harder. You need to try harder. You need to have more grit. You need to be more disciplined. Well, again, because there's an impairment here, there's a limitation to that. If we accommodate the impairment by making it easier, by collaborating, having people ask you questions is a little bit easier. Same thing as my glasses, right? They're here, they accommodate my poor eyesight. So I want to kind of go through a couple other examples of some of this stuff that reveals. So a lot of people with ADHD, they struggle, they'll say with time blindness. That's a great word. It's catchy. It's emotional. People are drawn to it. But when you are attracted to language like that, one would think that people with ADHD have a problem with time. They actually don't. Managing time is to visualize time, to use your executive functions to see the future. It's to be able to hold in mind not just what your have scheduled, but transition time, right? How long does it take to get into the car and get out of the house? How long does it take to get there to get to where you're going? What's required? Maybe you have to get gas along the way. It's all those little details that one needs to think about in order to manage time properly. And because it's a challenge, people with ADHD tend to escape. So going back to putting this in context, when we talk about time like clocks and calendars stuff, those are actually tools. Tools are used to help you problem solve, but they don't actually do the problem solve for you. So we can begin to think about if you have ADHD and you've ever used alarms and notifications, you'll have a tendency to set them. But you don't think about when they're going off. And if you're going to do them, they have a tendency to come and you'll hit the snooze button, or you'll have too many of them landing at one time and not answer any of them. Again, this is a thinking issue. You didn't really spend the time to think through it. So when we take a look at time blindness, again, we all gravitate to it. Wow, I'm time blind because I'm late. But it points us our attention in the wrong direction, really, to manage it. We really need to begin thinking of it in terms of a thinking impairment. And there's no way around it. You actually have to gauge in that thought. Another thing that's out there, whenever somebody calls me and wants one-on-one coaching, one of the things I ask them is, all right, so how can I help you? Trying to see what they can articulate. And typically they tell me about the problems that they've had or the symptoms. So then my next question is, what is your expectation of what I'm going to do in order to help you? It's not uncommon. I have somebody go, oh, I need accountability. To which I reply, why don't you go call your mother? If you really noticed, having somebody nag you, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Is something that you actually shy away from at some point in time. Now, if you're talking with somebody about what you're doing, you're actually collaborating. That's not accountability. When you're trying to explain to somebody what you're going to do, that's actually a thinking partner. You're not being held accountable. You're actually talking through it with somebody. We've talked about this before. For many people with ADHD, not to talk is not to think. The idea really is what's really taking place is not having them nag you, but you're actually talking about what you're trying to accomplish and it gets done. Another area I think is a common misnomer is we get attracted to rejection sensitivity. It's a big buzzword out there today. The problem with that blinds us, right? Emotion regulation is an executive function. Rejection sensitivity is something that many people can identify with because they feel rejected, but that's a feeling. In the model of cognitive ergonomics, we talk about a feeling is a reflexive reaction. When you're reacting reflexively, you're not actually thinking through what's going on. So a person, you might tell somebody a joke and they might not laugh. Reflexively, you might say they're rejecting to me, as opposed to stopping and going, maybe they have a different sense of humor. Maybe I just hit a bad nerve, or maybe they're distracted. Those are all legitimate reasons why the person's not necessarily rejecting you, yet you're jumping to that conclusion. The reason that this is important is that if you are in this state and you label something rejection sensitivity, it reminds me of that saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks at a nail, like a nail. So now you're walking around and everything you're looking at is a rejection. You become hypersensitive to it. And you're desensitized to the notion of pausing and stopping and thinking through that. So what the model does is it changes everything. We're no longer looking for tips, tricks, and strategies to solve the problem for us. We're still looking for tips or tools to help us think. But the real key here is too many people are looking at those things as if they're going to do the work for you when they actually don't. This is important when it comes to self-awareness. Again, we get lulled into this language and we get lulled into following these paths based off of what we're told from other people. And often we fall into these traps without actually thinking about what's going on. So there's a bit of a self-awareness play here. And one of the things our model bears out, it reveals the insights to understand what to look at to really understand what's underlying and what's kind of going on. Bear with me as I look at my notes to see if there's anything else. I've used this analogy in other videos that I've done, but I'll do it again to kind of hammer it home. It's not uncommon where somebody has a plan to write a blog. Say they schedule it for Thursday at 11 o'clock. They know what a blog is, right? They might have a topic. They actually have a plan. The reason they're writing a blog might be execute a strategy to grow business, but Thursday comes and goes and they don't write the blog. Why? Because there's a problem. They don't really understand what of all the thoughts they have are relevant, what words are going to go with those thoughts in a way that will articulate, and what order they're going to put those thoughts in a way that would be compelling to get people to read the blog. All that is problem solving. All that is using executive functions. Just saying that you're going to plan a time to do it doesn't actually resolve the problem. So again, that's what the model really kind of bears out, puts a spotlight on, and changes the way that you go about this. It's like, what's hard? What's the problem? If it's a level of ambiguity, I don't really know the words, you might talk out loud with somebody in order to come up with the story that you're going to use to convey that information. Think of it like this. Have you ever put together a puzzle? Imagine that a jigsaw puzzle. Imagine that you don't know the picture of what it's going to look like. It's pretty difficult to put the puzzle together. If you're going to convey information, a puzzle picture is like understanding the story that you're going to tell. If you understand the story, which is the picture, it's easier for you to write it or put those puzzle pieces together. So with that, I wanted to share that today. Again, the model's bearing these things out. It's a very different way of looking at ADHD. So with that, Pam, by chance, do we have any questions?
We have one question. Aren't we less intelligent then because we need people to think with?
That's a great question. The research, as I understand it, bears there's a slight difference in intelligence between ADHD and neurotypicals, but it's slight. I don't know what the real number is, but let's say you're 97, 96 as intelligent as neurotypicals. The key is it's harder for you to do it inside your head. If you have a map, you draw it out, you talk out loud, you collaborate, basically you can compete at the same level as anything else. And there's a ton of people with ADHD that are out there that are very, very successful. Most of them have a crowd around them helping. I myself, Pam's one of my virtual assistants. I think I've got 5 others that I go to and often will talk through that stuff with them. I'm not an idiot. I'm not Einstein by any stretch of the imagination, but as long as I have that collaborative help so I can externalize my thinking, I can perform and live a fulfilling life. So I hope that answers that question.
That's it. No more questions.
Right. That looks like we have. We're doing this live. If you've got any other questions later, if you just throw something in the comments, I try to answer every question or every comment that's posted on YouTube. Sometimes I miss some, but again, if you're watching this at a later date and you have a question, put it down. We'll see if we can get back to you. So with that, thanks for joining us. I hope this was helpful. I think we have another live stream set up next week. I'm varying the days and times to see if I can accommodate as many people as possible. So appreciate that. Also, if you have a better time of day that you like this, let me know. So thanks for joining us. Take care.